I've loved seeing you here on Big Shot. How was Harper originally described to you?
Harper was originally described as a very energetic journalist, really like going after what she wanted. Motives maybe not entirely clear at first, and that was really fun getting to kind of read into Harper and figure her out um, as I went along. That was really fun.
Was there something you added to her then that wasn't there in her initial breakdown?
I don't think there's anything I like added. It's just something that happens as you're going through the show. You you discover things that maybe you didn't think of when writing it, and then you have it up on its feet with the person and the people playing them, and they kind of take on a life of their own. I think everything to me I wrote when we were shooting 103, so a lot of those lines in there about Harper was stuff that I was able to kind of think of for Harper and throw in.
I was going to ask you if there was a chance to improvise on this series or if the writing was just something you stuck to.
Yes and no. The writing is so good, you really don't need to do anything to it. There was moments though where they let us play. For instance, I have many fun scenes with Kathleen Rose Perkins, and there is one scene in 105 where um, Emma and Lucas are talking, but in the background, if you listen closely, you can hear Miss Goodwin and Harper bickering, and that was improv. That was we were just miming and reading each other's lips off camera, and then Viet, our director for that episode, came over to us and he was like, "Okay, do it again, but this time actually make the noise, say the words that you're saying, because that was fun. We want that." So you can kind of hear that in the background of me yelling at April, who was the background actor that I was complaining about as Harper, her not giving me anything because she was playing a dead person, and Miss Goodwin pointing out, of course she's not giving you anything. She's dead. That's no excuse for bad acting, so on and so forth. So there's definitely room to play and have fun with it, but there's really nothing that has to be added. It's so exquisitely written.
Were you familiar with any of your co-stars before working with them on this show? I mean, obviously, John Stamos is
Sure.
well known and Jessalyn is as well. But were you
Yes.
familiar with any of the girls, maybe?
No, not particularly. Of course, I was a big fan of Yvette and Kathleen, Yvette Nicole Brown and Kathleen going in. Uh, but as far as the girls, it was kind of all new to me. Uh, if I had been watching my social media, I would have found out that I was Harper a lot sooner because Tisha Custodio followed me prior to me finding out. So if I had been keeping an eye on it, I would have been familiar. But it was really lovely just to get to meet a bunch of new girls who are extraordinarily talented.
I love the scenes where you and Kathleen Rose interact. What were some of your favorites to film, if you can tease?
Oh, sure. I love the 105 scene because getting to improvise with her and kind of go off is a career highlight, definitely. I think there's a scene in 109. There's a lot of stuff in 108 with Kathleen, which I adore, and which I won't go into details. In 109, I my hair is very long, and I know that, but I'm not always aware of that. So there is a scene in particular where I huff off and turn away, and I kind of accidentally hit her in the face with my hair, which I think ended up being what we used. But one of the takes, I kind of really whacked her, and I had no idea because I couldn't gauge the distance. I felt very bad about that, but we all thought it was also very hilarious. So it was, "Are you good? You're good. Okay, that was funny. As long as you're okay, we can move on."
You do have such great comedic timing. Is it
Thank
something
you.
that's just a natural ability you've had, or have you found yourself just getting better at it, honing it in some way?
It's funny. When I was younger, I if you had asked me 10, 15 years ago if I was funny, I would say, no, no, thank you. Give me the words, and I'll just do what you want me to say. But I think I've always had a funny sense of humor just when I'm talking to people, and I went to RADA for Shakespeare. When I came back, I went to UCB for improv, and specifically musical improv. And from there, I'm a songwriter, which, I'm writing for songs for Big Shot as well. But I had written a song that I couldn't play anywhere but the comedy clubs, and I just submitted myself in the Burbank Comedy Festival because my musical improv team I had already submitted, so I figured why not. And I ended up winning the Burbank Comedy Festival. And stand up was definitely something that I never saw myself doing. I thought I can't do that. That's not a thing I do. And now I love it. And I did the Hollywood Fringe, did 6 shows in the Hollywood Fringe. And if it weren't for, quarantine, I would have been doing stand up on my off days from Big Shot as well. So I think it's something that I've always had, but I didn't, I think the musical improv training kind of taught me how to hone it, or how to recognize it a little bit better. And I kind of kept myself busy through quarantine with comedy too. I did quarantunes is what I called them, parodies of musical theater songs that I wanted to sing, but I didn't necessarily want to just sing it because it's not as entertaining without an audience. So I was like, oh, mess with the words and have some fun. Uh, yeah, so I think that's a big ramble. To answer your question, I think it's always something I had, but I didn't know how to exactly do on purpose. And I think that's a skill. Comedy is definitely something that looks easy, but is hard. And I think it's something that I've constantly worked at, and I'm constantly working at. And being on a show like this with so many amazing actors, and amazing comedic actors specifically, is very helpful. And doing your research, like Buster Keaton, is brilliant.
You do have quite a talent as well for songwriting. Do you need to have lyrics before you can come up with the additional melody, or do you have to have music before you can then follow through on the lyrics?
It depends on what song I'm writing and how. I think there's some songs that I write that I automatically hear the words. I'm a wordy person, if you can't tell. And I think a lot of song ideas come from play on words and kind of how to mess with a turn of phrase and give it a different meaning and a new context and stuff. So I think a lot of my songs come from word ideas, and the music, the lyrics and melody almost always go hand in hand for me. So there's definitely a couple songs, quite a few songs that I've just like written in the shower or while I'm driving somewhere. And I just kind of voice record it, write down the lyrics. And then when I'm in my trailer, not in my trailer, when I'm at home or somewhere where I can pull my uke out from my trunk, I'll sit down and I'll write the music. But then there's other songs where I'll be practicing something and I'll mess it up and I'll like it better. So I just abandon the practicing and I zone in on that one weird chord that I messed up and really liked. And then I write the music. And then there's been some songs where I've written the entire song musically. And I'm like, I don't know what this is about. And I just kind of put it down until I have the lyrical idea that goes with it. And then they change as it goes hand in hand. The music will then change to fit the lyrics, or the lyrics will change to fit the music because I hit a wrong chord and liked it. And I'm like, oh, I'll go minor here. So it depends on the song and the story that I'm trying to tell for that song.
Is your
Yeah.
music for Big Shot then based on specific scenes or character arcs?
Yeah. I So everything to me I wrote when we were shooting 103. Dean Laurie, John Stamos and Dean Laurie and I were talking about the future of Marper, as we call Mouse and Harper. And Dean Laurie said that he thought at some point we should play songs together, play ukes together, because that was a pastime that we had done. This was pre-pandemic. In the trailer during lunchtime, we would bring our ukes to set and go and just play music and stuff. And we got caught by the director going to the trailer with the ukes and stuff. So it had been noticed. And he said, I think they should play ukes together. So I took that as my shot, my big shot, haha. And I said, I think that Mouse should write a song for me. And he laughed and he said, ha, song written by Mouse, that would be 3 lines and only facts. I said, well, in that case, and I sang a different song of mine that I had already written. And it was kind of like okay. And we had been singing on set and talking in two-part harmony and singing in two-part harmony, and it was being filmed and apparently sent to the writer's room, which we found out afterwards. So we kind of all just laughed it off. And then I went home and I wrote that song. I wrote the song that was 3 lines and only facts that Mouse would write for Harper, because all I had about Mouse was what I had from 103. And in 103, Mouse around Harper is very very talkative because she's excited. So it's kind of a different flavor for a Mouse. So I, did my research. I talked to Tisha. I was like, tell me more about Mouse. I wrote everything to me, sent it to her. We recorded it. We sent it to Dean. And it ended up in 108. And then from there, he asked me to write the musical, the Beth Macbeth musical. And I'm a Shakespeare nerd. I love it. And I had already actually written a comedic gender bent adaptation of Macbeth the year prior to being cast on Big Shot. So it felt very kismet, kind of meant to be in the stars.
Right.
So when he said it was a gender bent musical of Macbeth, it was like, all right, it's gonna be fun. So I definitely had material to pull from, because it is Macbeth. It's a known classic, the Scottish play. So I used Shakespeare's poem for the witch's song, which you'll hear in 109, but everything else is modern speech, with the exception of one line, which was super fun. And I got guidance from Dean of this is what this song's function is supposed to do. It's supposed to do this on one level and this on the other level. And they just kind of said go, and I wrote the songs, and then I ended up writing more songs, and it's a total of 5. And we recorded them, and they're in the show. And I still don't really know how that happened, but I'm still pinching myself. Eve Nelson produced all the songs that we did for the show, and it was a wonderful experience. And having Dawn Solaire, chatting with me on the Zoom, just very strange.
Surreal.
Very surreal. That's the word. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, fans must be very vocal, since you are a part of social media, about their shipping Marper, or about their feelings about Marper. What kind of fan feedback have you been receiving?
Positive. It's funny because I know when this comes out, it'll all be out, but at this point it's still kind of under wraps. I don't think that's really the case. I think people kind of see it coming, which I guess is a good thing. It means that they want that to happen. I think the most positive reactions is from our castmates. Damien Alonso, who plays Jake, is very vocal on social media about Marper. Marper seems to be the name that we're going with. We couldn't decide between
Okay.
Marper or House. We say Marper's house a lot. I think Stamos was probably our first shipper. It's been very positive, and I think they're excited to see what comes next. Yeah.
Speaking of what comes next, have you been busy working on anything recently other than Big Shot?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I got some VO stuff in the pipeline that I can't quite talk about yet, but very fun to do. I do it from my little home studio here, since quarantine, and working on my music. This was the first time I was writing for other people. So I have about 200 plus songs of my own that I have already written that I'm kind of going through one by one and recording. As far as the VO stuff, I'll just say 2022 is probably all I can say.
What would you like to say then to everyone who are fans and supporters of you and the incredible work you do,
Aw,
musically and comedically?
aw. I'd say thank you so much for watching. I'm very grateful to be able to make anyone laugh and smile, especially when things are not always positive in the world. So to be able to be a small part of what makes someone's day or week or month, whatever it may be, a little bit better is very, very satisfying. And I guess I'd say for anyone who watches Sophia the First, then I would say to them, bigger is better.